Hey everyone, this is Colette. Welcome to my channel Witch Ways, and today I'm going to talk about the full moons of fall, the magic that you can do. So let me know in the comments if you would like me to continue this series for winter and spring. I hope you enjoy. Here are some of the names for the moon of this month or the month itself that come from Anglo-Saxon, Celtic, and North European traditions. You can use these to get ideas for your magic or call on them to invoke the power of this particular moon. The first name is Ha Ligmonath, and that's an Anglo-Saxon name for this time of year, and it means holy month, and it's a time to give offerings to the gods. The one that I'm going to talk about next is Mian Formor or Forvor. Trying my best with the pronunciation here. It depends also on what part of Ireland you are in for the pronunciation, along with my garbled American accent. Also, other names for this moon are harvest moon, wine moon, song moon, barley moon, and in Western magical culture, this moon is the second of the 3 harvest moons. So usually the first thing that I do at this time of year is shift the herbs that I use in my steam pot. And so this one is to welcome in fall. It is an offering and a blessing for the house and the house spirits, and it helps to call in the magic of the fall. I like to center myself before I start and try to feel the energy of the season as I'm experiencing it in that moment in my body as I do this piece of magic. So then I take a pot, I fill it almost to the top with plenty of water, and then I cut an apple in half and do that horizontally so that the little pentacle of seeds are showing, and put both those halves in the pot. Then I add some cinnamon, a few cloves, and a very small amount of rosemary. In this spell, the apple represents the seasonal magic of harvest, and the cinnamon and cloves represent the cozy feelings and magic of autumn, and the rosemary adds just a little bit of clearing, protection, and making room for a new start. Then I put a lid on it, bring the water to a quick boil, remove the lid, and carry that pot of steaming herbs and fruit throughout the house, and just let the aroma infuse the whole house, and try to imagine the house taking it in, and that those scents help clear out old things and make way for the new season. This month's full moon is one of those windows in the year where the magic of abundance is really on your side if you need that. It falls near the autumn equinox, and it's at the peak of the harvest season this year. So for this spell, I'm going to give you a couple substitutions in case you have any difficulty finding one of the items. Walk around your neighborhood and see if you can find any acorns, and pick out the biggest ones that you can find on the ground. Don't worry, I'm going to give a substitution for those later on in case you can't find any or don't live in an area where there are any acorns. And then on a piece of paper, write something very general down, like abundance beyond expenses or far beyond expenses in the center of the paper. Or you can write something really specific in the center if you have a set goal in mind. If you want, you can decorate the edges of your paper with spirals, some coming in and some going out, to represent the money that needs to come in to cover the things that are going out. And then in the center, I draw one really big spiral to represent abundances beyond expenses coming into me. And there's lots of different ways to draw spirals that are invoking or outgoing or releasing. But for me, the way that I do it is I just draw an arrow on the direction that the spiral is going in the tip of the spiral. That's just easier for my mind to see. And then you can even decorate those spirals if you want. Then I place the acorns in a circle around my spell paper, and this is where you can make substitutions. If you didn't find those acorns, you can add oak leaves. Sometimes those are easier to find, or dark colored grapes that you purchased at the store. These things all represent the abundance of the earth, growth and expansion. And then I also like to sprinkle a little cinnamon bark or cinnamon powder around on the spell paper, just because this is also an abundance herb. It's protective and it calls in a little boost of magic and spiritual action. Once you have that all set up, you can just light a candle in the center. I like a warm colored candle, or you might prefer a green colored candle for the abundance of the earth, but whatever works for you. And then imagine or feel, if you can, the energy of the season running through your body, out through your hands, out to the earth, and coming back to you in kind of a circular way, if you can do that. If you can't, just imagine it. And then let the candle burn all the way out. Make an offering of water or wine to the earth, and then return the grapes or the oak to the earth, and imagine that composting and nourishing further abundance and growth. It was Hunter's moon to the Anglo-Saxons, perhaps winter's moon to the Nordic peoples, and I've read that it was also called seedfall moon by the Celts, but I'm thinking that could potentially be just a neo-pagan name rather than something that's traditional. And I tend to call on the ancestors and older, wiser deities and gods at this time of year. And I also start to call on some of those more underworld spirits. I always clear my candles before I use them, and the way that I do that is to put them all in a basket and just pass them over a little rosemary smoke or over a candle flame if I'm just doing a few, making sure to not melt them. Then I make a tea of cinnamon, rosemary, and calendula. And if you can't find calendula flowers, you can certainly substitute ginger instead. And as I add each herb to the tea water, I ask those herbs to help me with security, safety, coziness, warmth, and good health through the winter months. Then I lay the candles out on a plate or a tray and sprinkle them with that tea and let them sit until they're dry. Then I place them somewhere in a window where the full moon light will shine on them, and then leave them there until morning. Then I gather them up and store them in a basket with a little bit of cloth over the top of them to protect them. And you can light them at every full moon through the winter months or whenever you need it. I have a small ancestor altar that I leave up all year round, but at this time of year I like to create a much larger one for my known ancestors with all their names on it at the full moon in October. And then I just light a candle to activate it and don't do much with it for this period of time. And I'm going to do a whole video on ancestors a little later this fall. And you certainly do not have to put up an ancestor altar if your ancestors are problematic. And we all know that there are a lot of problematic ancestors. And so one of the things you can do instead is just put up an altar for your beloved dead if you have any. And this can absolutely include animal friends. Full moons are all about expansion, even in the waning part of the year. And so what I like to do is to make an altar for those who've inspired us, who have passed over. And that's the part of my altar that I really like to work with at the October full moon. And so over the years, I've researched and found the names of people who've passed over that work towards a more just and equitable future. And for me, this isn't just political activists. It's the trans ancestors, the queer ancestors, the queer mysterious ones, the witches of the craft who've passed over. It's the artists, writers, poets, musicians, singers, and the wisdom holders of every cultural tradition who really work to keep their traditions alive. So on the full moon night, I just like to start by lighting some candles, and I also like to lay down some garden sage on that section of my altar to represent wisdom and wise counsel. And I also place a few dark rocks to represent the memories that are now held by the earth of these people who've passed over. Then I read the list of names, and you can say whatever feels right to you. But I usually say something a little formal. Then I say thank you at the end and give an offering of spirits or water, or perhaps a full plate of a special meal. People often dream way more vividly at the full moon, and the veils are starting to thin. So it's a really good time to ask for a dream from your spirit guides, helpers, ancestors, or deities if there's a situation in your life that you don't know how to resolve. And to do that, personally, what I would do is clear the room with some protective or clearing herbs like rosemary or blue vervain, or any of the ones that you like. And then if you've worked with mugwort before and it agrees with you, I would place a little bit near your bed or burn a little bit more after you've cleared the room. Mugwort just makes your dreams a little more vivid and a little more intense. If you cast circles, I would cast one around the bed, around the room, or just around yourself if you're sleeping with someone else. Then ask for any guides or allies that come to you to be trusted, recognized spirits who have your best interest at heart, and then ask your question and go to sleep. Often takes a bit of time for you to understand the dream, to sit with it. You can always ask clarifying questions with cards or a pendulum, but I think it could even take until the next moon cycle to understand and get some insight, or maybe even longer, or it might be really clear right away. October 31st is Halloween, and the new moon falls this year on November 1st. And what that means is for those few days around that time of year when the veil is thinnest, the moon will be dark and invisible in the sky. And that means the power of both the darkness of the moon and the Samhain itself will be greatly enhanced. And of course, I'm going to do a whole video on Samhain later. This is probably the best time of year for doing any banishing or releasing work, especially this year since that dark moon coincides. It's also good for severing relationships, even past life agreements that you might have made with someone. It's a great time of year to do divination work. And also it's wonderful to celebrate our craft and those who did what they could to keep it alive and pass it down to us. The November full moon was known by the Algonquin, Native American traditions, and early settlers who took that name as Beaver Month. Blot Moonoth in the Nordic and Anglo-Saxon traditions, which is also known as Sacrifice Moon in Nordic. And a lot of Celtic sites give names for this moon that seems like they're more neo-pagan than historical. A lot of historical sources say this whole moon, this whole month, this whole time was just called Samhain. I feel like the full moon of November is just about relaxing and replenishing and settling into the dark and nourishing ourselves and taking care of ourselves. And that's something that's not easy to do in industrialized cultures, but we do our best. This year that full moon falls mid-month, and so I like to have a very simple celebration of some kind with my community, just where I offer blessings to others and receive blessings in turn, make some offerings to whatever spirits we feel called to work with that moon, and just give a lot of offerings in general. Sometimes I will choose this night to walk around my garden after dark and wish my trees a restful and beneficial sleep through the winter months. Remember to put in the comments if you would like me to do more of these for winter and spring. And I want to thank you all for watching, subscribing, liking, and sharing my videos. It means a lot to me, and I thank you for it. So I hope you have a wonderful season. Stay safe and be well.